At first glance, Articulate Rise appears to be a easy-to-use design tool with a great look and feel to it. However, anyone who has used it long enough will tell you that that visual design is set in stone. Now, basic choices like changing fonts and colors, yes, you can do that. But everything else, Articulate has made those decisions for us, and we're kind of stuck with them. Now, I have a lot to say about how irritating this can be as a graphic designer, but I'm planning a series of tool review videos, so I will save my critique for then. But for now, let's talk about one of the design choices that Articulate does let you control pretty well, which is the spacing between content blocks in Rise, specifically what's referred to as padding. Let me show you over here in Rise what I'm referring to. Currently in Rise, what I have here is 3 content blocks. The first one is a block of text as a paragraph with a heading, and then just a heading and just a paragraph. And immediately from a spacing perspective, what you can see is that there's a difference in the space between the heading where it's all 1 block and the spacing where it's 2. Where it's 1 block, there's essentially no padding. Whereas with the block of content that's just a heading, if we go to Edit and Settings, in any block in Rise, you don't have many options like I was saying earlier. By default, headings and subheadings will have no padding there, and I'll talk about why in a minute. But normally this is always 30 and 30 by default. And if we go down here to the paragraph itself, we go to settings, and like I said, by default, 30 on the top, 30 on the bottom. So in order for us to match this separate heading with this paragraph block the way it is altogether, we would have to come in and say we don't want any padding on the top of the paragraph. And now they match. But as we continue to add content, I'll just add a bunch of paragraphs here. And maybe a heading, then some more paragraphs, and another heading. What I'm essentially doing is I'm creating chunks of content in this course. However, Rise isn't smart enough to know when one chunk will start and one will end outside of each individual block of content. So it just adds that default padding of 30 pixels on the top and the bottom. It's up to us if we really care about visual design and chunking content effectively, which I would argue as instructional designers we really should be, because how people process information visually is extremely important. It plays a role in how they process and retain information, their cognitive load, and all those kinds of things. So what I recommend is while we're in Rise is to make decisions up front to be consistent on how much spacing we're going to have between each individual element and separations of chunks of content or different elements together. And what I mean by that is, so here is a section all by itself. It's all self-contained in this one block. We have a heading and we have some content associated with it. We want to move on to another chunk of content. Great. We've already fixed that padding problem here. It's all together. But we have a problem here. I made the decision up front that I want 60 pixels of padding between chunks of content and only 30 between each block of content. So now I have to come in and I decide either the top or the bottom where I'm going to remove. I like to do the top because that way I can easily adjust into my headings and subheadings effectively. And it's kind of a pain, but I'm going to come in here and for each bit that's going to be associated under this heading, I want to remove that top padding. And already you'll start to notice that this is more visually apparent what belongs under what heading. So, okay, I have this chunk of content and I have this chunk of content here that's a little longer. But scrolling down, when we leave things at their default of 60 pixels between them, it's too much. And the brain has a little bit harder time processing what goes with what. So seeing that it's one of the few design choices that Articulate does give us some fine control over, I really do encourage everybody to adjust their padding between their content blocks in Rise so that you're, one, being consistent, and two, letting your learners visually process information better to ultimately lead to better retention and better learning outcomes. If you found this video useful, this is YouTube and it's the law. I have to tell you to please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Like I mentioned, I've got more videos coming tool reviews and other stuff along the way. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.